A opening sound, crashing surf, gulls screaming, then silence broken by a musket shot. The narrator's voice cuts in low, steady, with weight like a cannon blast. Heat blood stained the Caribbean waves red. A British man-o'-war, built to crush fleets to defend empires, was burning, and on the deck of a smaller ship, a woman with flaming hair and a pistol in each hand screamed above the roar of cannon fire. Her name was Anne Bonny. History tried to bury her. The British crown branded her a criminal, a disgrace, an outlaw who should never have existed. But on this day, Anne Bonny did the unthinkable. She outwitted the Royal Navy. She proved that a woman, written off as powerless, could turn the sea into a battlefield and walk away victorious. The question is, how? And why did Europe's greatest power fear the memory of her name? Stay with me, because this isn't just a pirate tale. This is a story of rebellion, of survival, and of one moment when the empire itself faltered. Born in scandal, Anne Bonny's story begins not on the sea, but in scandal. She was born around 1700 in Ireland, the illegitimate daughter of a lawyer and his maid. When her father's affair became public, shame drove the family to the New World. They settled in the sweltering plantations of South Carolina. Even as a child, Anne was said to be wild, fierce-tempered, quick to fight, and unafraid to wield a blade. Plantation life could not contain her. She hungered for freedom, for danger, for something beyond the rigid cages of colonial society. Neighbors whispered about the girl who dressed like a boy, who cursed like a sailor, who once stabbed a servant for insulting her. But destiny would not keep her in Carolina for long. The road to piracy. By her late teens, Anne had married a poor sailor named James Bonny. The match disappointed her wealthy father. But Anne wasn't searching for status, she was searching for escape. The couple drifted to the Bahamas, an island swarming with pirates. Nassau in the early 1700s was a republic of rogues: Blackbeard, Calico Jack, Charles Vane. It was here Anne's path crossed with those who lived by the code of the sea. She met John Rackham, better known as Calico Jack, a dashing pirate captain draped in fine clothes looted from merchant ships. Anne was captivated. Jack saw in her more than a mistress, he saw a partner. She abandoned James. She abandoned her old life. And with Jack she embraced the black flag. What she chose next shocked the world. A woman among wolves. The pirate life was no place for women. Sailors believed it was bad luck to even allow one aboard. But Anne Bonny broke every rule. She disguised herself at first, wearing men's clothes, fighting shoulder to shoulder with Jack's crew. Soon, she revealed the truth. Not only did she fight as fiercely as any man, she often fought harder. She carried pistols at her waist, a cutlass on her hip, and a reputation for brutality that spread from ship to ship. Witnesses swore she cursed louder than seasoned deckhands, that she leapt into battle screaming, her red hair flying like a banner of defiance. One sailor later recalled, she was a lion in the shape of a woman, and none dared cross her path. This was no ordinary pirate. This was a storm in human form. Targeting the British by the 1710s, Britain ruled the seas with the Royal Navy. But its dominance stretched thin across a vast empire. Its warships chased French fleets, Spanish galleons, and Dutch traders. And in the cracks of this empire, pirates thrived. Anne and Calico Jack hunted British merchants across the Caribbean. They struck quickly, fast sloops darting in and out before lumbering warships could respond. Anne wasn't just muscle. She was strategy. She pushed Jack to take risks, to ambush, to deceive. One British captain wrote in fury, "They fight like devils, and the woman commands as though she were possessed." The truth was clear. Anne Bonny wasn't just surviving in a man's world, she was winning. The trap, but the Royal Navy doesn't forget. By 1720, the governor of Jamaica sent warships to hunt Rackham's crew. One night, as Anne's sloop rested in a quiet harbor, the British descended. Outnumbered, outgunned, surprise on their side. The Navy believed victory was certain. They were wrong. Anne Bonny would not go quietly. Fire on the sea. The battle erupted in chaos. The British man-o'-war opened with a broadside, cannonballs shredding sails, smashing planks, shaking the sloop like a toy. Pirates stumbled screaming. Some fled below deck, too drunk or too terrified to fight. But not Anne. She stormed to the deck, firing pistols, rallying the few who dared to stand. "Fight, you dogs!" she roared, her voice carrying above the thunder of cannon fire. Beside her, another fierce woman, Mary Read, Anne's closest ally, fought with blade and musket. Together, they carved through boarding parties, holding the British at bay. The Navy expected surrender. What they got was defiance. And what Anne did next turned the tide. Anne's gambit. In the thick of the fight, Anne spotted an opening. The Navy ship, larger and slower, had to swing wide to reload its guns. In that brief window, Anne seized command. She shouted for the helm to turn, for sails to catch the wind. The pirate sloop scraped past the warship's hull, almost crushed by its bulk. But in the chaos, Anne's crew hurled firepots, jars of pitch and flame, onto the British deck. In moments, the man-o'-war was ablaze. The hunters had become the hunted. Smoke choked the sky. Flames raced up rigging. British sailors panicked, torn between fighting the pirates and saving their own ship. And in that fire, Anne Bonny carved her legend. Victory in ashes. The British Navy ship, crippled by fire, drifted helplessly. Its cannons silenced, its crew scattered. It could no longer fight. Anne Bonny, pistol raised, stood at the prow of her ship, eyes blazing. She had done the impossible. Against all odds, against Empire itself, she had defeated the Royal Navy. If only for a moment in history. It was a victory the Crown could never admit. Too shameful, too dangerous, too inspiring. But sailors remembered. They carried her name like a secret prayer, and the world would never forget the woman who set fire to an empire's pride. A soundscape: crackling fire, splintering wood, muffled screams fading into the roar of the sea. Then silence. A heartbeat. The narrator's voice cuts in low, deliberate. Beat the aftermath of fire. The sea swallowed the last embers of the British warship. What had begun as a perfect ambush ended as humiliation for the Crown. Anne Bonny's sloop limped away, sails torn, crew bloodied, but alive. For one night, for one blazing memory, a pirate ship had stood against the Empire and walked away. But victory at sea does not erase enemies. And Anne knew the British would never forgive her. The Caribbean was wide, but the Royal Navy was patient. The price of defiance would come. Still, for Anne Bonny, that night was proof of something greater, that she was more than a sidekick, more than Calico Jack's lover. She was captain in spirit, commander in chaos. She had tasted glory, and she would not let it go. Whispers across the Caribbean, word of Anne's defiance spread fast. Merchant captains whispered about the woman pirate who had burned a king's ship. Sailors traded her name in taverns like a secret curse. Anne Bonny, she fights like the devil herself. In Nassau, in Havana, in Port Royal, her story grew. Some said she was a witch who could not die by blade or bullet. Others claimed she was no woman at all, but a demon disguised in red hair. Every retelling made her larger than life. And every whisper made the British Crown more desperate to silence her. The pirates of the Caribbean had found their symbol. Love and betrayal, but legends are not immune to human weakness. Anne's bond with Calico Jack Rackham was deep but strained. Jack was bold, yes, but he was also reckless, a gambler with lives. Anne wanted more than plunder. She wanted glory, command, the respect she had earned in fire. But Jack often drowned himself in rum, leaving her to rally the men. In secret, some crew began to whisper, was Anne the true captain? Tensions boiled. And though Anne and Jack shared passion, they also shared rivalry. Their partnership would not last forever. Anne and Mary Read. Among all the pirates, only one understood Anne fully: Mary Read. Mary, like Anne, had lived disguised as a man, had fought as a soldier and sailor before turning pirate. The two women were bound by fire and freedom. In battle, they fought side by side, pistols blazing, cutlasses flashing. Some sailors swore they were fiercer than 10 men combined. Anne and Mary's bond went beyond friendship. Some accounts hinted at intimacy, at a love forged in blood and rebellion. Together, they were unstoppable. Two women, feared more than the armies of Europe. But even the fiercest storms burn out. Fate strikes back. The British Crown would not let its shame go unanswered. Weeks after Anne's fiery victory, the governor of Jamaica dispatched yet another ship, this time with orders to bring her back alive, or not at all. The Navy studied her tactics. They avoided the mistakes of the past. One night in October 1720, as Anne and Jack drank in a harbor, the British struck again. But this time, there was no escape. Half the crew was drunk. Some hid below deck. Jack staggered in confusion. Only Anne and Mary fought, standing alone on the deck, screaming at their cowardly crew. "Fight, you dogs! Fight like men!" Anne roared. But outnumbered, overwhelmed, even lions fall. Chains, captured, bound in irons, Anne Bonny's fate seemed sealed. In Port Royal, she was paraded before the courts. The crowd stared at her, some in awe, some in disgust. The judge called her a disgrace. He sentenced her and Mary Read to hang. But Anne did not tremble. She spat defiance. "If you had fought like men, you need not have been hanged like dogs." Those words, sharp as cannon fire, were her last recorded speech to Jack Rackham, who awaited his execution. The woman who defied empire left her lover with shame. The pregnant parrot. But Anne Bonny did not hang. She revealed she was pregnant. By English law, execution of a pregnant woman was forbidden. Her sentence was delayed. Mary Read, too, claimed pregnancy. But she sickened in prison, dying before her child could be born. Anne's trail goes cold after this. Some say her wealthy father bought her release. Others claim she escaped, vanishing into the New World to live under another name. History erased her, or tried to. But sailors remembered. And legends don't die so easily. Legacy of fire. What makes Anne Bonny's story endure? It's not just that she fought like a man. It's that she refused to be defined by men at all. She rose from scandal. She defied her father, her husband, her king. She carved her name into history with steel and flame. For one night, she defeated the Royal Navy. For one lifetime, she terrified the Empire. And for centuries, she has stood as a symbol of rebellion, of defiance, of a truth empires fear most. That power does not belong only to kings. Anne Bonny is more than a pirate. She is a ghost of empire's failure. Her name lingers in ballads, in whispers, in stories told by sailors who dream of freedom. And when the sea crashes against the shore, when ships burn in the night, one can almost hear her voice: "You dogs." The Empire tried to bury her. But Anne Bonny sails still, in legend, in fire, in the memory of a woman who once set the seas ablaze. Soundscape: a deep, distant storm. slow drums like heartbeats. A narrator's voice cuts in, solemn but sharp. The trial's shadow, the records of Anne Bonny's trial in Jamaica, are among the few written documents that survive her story. But what the ink does not capture is the atmosphere of that courtroom. Witnesses described how the chamber smelled of sweat, rum, and candle wax. British officials sat in powdered wigs, looking down at a woman in chains. They expected fear, they expected begging. Instead, Anne met their gaze like a lioness. Even in defeat, she had the aura of a victor. What the court did not know was that every word spoken in that chamber would echo centuries later. What became of her? The truth of Anne Bonny's fate is uncertain. Some accounts claim she died in prison after her child was born. Others insist her wealthy father in Carolina intervened, pulling strings to save her. There are whispers of a quiet life lived under another name. Married, raising children, fading into obscurity. But pirates do not vanish so easily. Sailors in Havana swore they saw a red-haired woman drinking rum decades later, laughing at sea shanties. Others in Charleston claimed she returned home and lived to 90, telling grandchildren of battles that no woman, or man, should have survived. What is fact, what is legend? Perhaps it does not matter. What matters is that her shadow still walks the Caribbean. Anne Vris, the Empire. Anne's legacy is not just a tale of swashbuckling battles. It is a clash of identities, between empire and individual, between control and defiance. The British Crown tried to present her as an anomaly, a scandal, a woman gone astray. But in taverns and dockyards, in the imaginations of sailors, Anne Bonny became something else, proof that the Empire's grip was not unbreakable. She had burned their ships. She had mocked their courts. She had made them bleed. For one night on the open sea, she had embarrassed the greatest navy in the world, and that shame cannot be erased. The human Anne strip away the legend, and Anne was still human. She laughed, she cursed, she argued, she loved. She held pistols with trembling hands, she bled like anyone else. An old sailor once recalled, she fought with fury aye, but she also fought with fear. The trick was, she never let the fear win. That is why her story endures. Not because she was a flawless hero, but because she was flawed, angry, impulsive, passionate. Her humanity makes her unforgettable. Why she matters today. Anne Bonny's story is not frozen in the 1700s. Every generation rediscovers her. To some, she is a feminist icon, breaking the chains of a world that told her what she could not be. To others, she is a rebel spirit, reminding us that defiance is as timeless as the sea. And to many, she is simply unforgettable. The woman who fought an empire and laughed in its face. History tried to silence her. Instead, it immortalized her. The sea keeps her alive because the sea has always belonged to the defiant. The final words before Calico Jack Rackham was led to the gallows, Anne was allowed to visit him one last time. What she told him became legend. Well, if you had fought like a man, you need not have been hanged like a dog. It was not just a farewell to Jack. It was a final insult to the empire that had captured her. She lived on while Jack swung. She endured while others perished. That sentence, sharp as a cutlass, is the last echo we have of her voice. A woman who refused to bow, even as the empire closed its noose. The ghost ship of Anne Bonny. Sailors tell a story. On moonless nights in the waters near Jamaica, some have seen a phantom ship, sails torn but glowing white. At its prow stands a woman with burning red hair, pistols in her belt, a sword in her hand. She does not speak. She only stares, daring the world to challenge her again. Those who see her say the sea grows restless, as if remembering. Anne Bonny has no grave, but perhaps she needs none. She is buried in every storm, every shipwreck, every defiant act against impossible odds. She is the ghost of rebellion itself. Anne Bonny's true fate may be lost, but her story is a living thing, growing every time it's told. And as long as people dream of freedom, she will never die. If you want more untold stories of forgotten battles, rebels, and legends that shook empires, subscribe. The next story might just change the way you see history forever.